welcome everyone. This is Rachel Rose Little Crow, and this evening I have the honor and the pleasure of spending time with Schamet Horsfield, who is a beautiful and sacred embodiment of the priestess and the goddess. About 2 years ago, Schamet had the vision of the Awaken the Goddess Within summit. And through this inspiration, she has gathered some of the most beautiful, creative, loving, and evolutionary minds in the spiritual and transformational community to come forward in this great act of service, which is the Awaken the Goddess Within summit. I've had the pleasure of spending quite a bit of time with Schamet, and I can tell you that her greatest fulfillment and deepest pleasure is to support others in connecting to and finding their soul path and destiny. And she gives this loving service to the world. So on behalf of all the contributors to the Awaken the Goddess Within Summit, Schamet, we would like to thank you for gathering us and to welcome you into your time of sharing. Welcome, Schamet.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you for that introduction.
So Schamet, please tell us, what does the goddess mean to you?
Such a big question. It's such an enormous question. And it means everything that everyone has said. But I'll speak for my own journey. When I found out about God and connecting in with God, I had an incredible journey. My mom and dad were not religious. Religion was not something that was forced on me. It was actually me that was a seeker. As a little girl, I started going to a Mormon church in Utah, and I would have been 7 or 8 years old. It was my choice. My family didn't go, but I was looking, I was searching, I was seeking for answers to find out what and why we were here. And I knew when I was a little girl that I was here for a reason. I knew that I had come here to planet Earth to create change. I knew this, at such a young age. And so, I explored lots of different religions, Mormon, Pentecostal, Baptist. I spoke in tongues. I went to Sunday school. I even at one point at 15 years old dressed up like a clown and taught Sunday school to all the kids that had come from, dysfunctional families that were having a hard time. We'd have a school bus and go and pick up all the kids and take them to the church and teach them about love. And I loved it. I loved it so much. I was that 15-year-old that was in silent reading class, reading my Bible and going to church 3 times a week because I wanted to. And I really loved the community aspect. I loved making a difference. We would go and sing in a choir called Something Higher to all the inmates that were in jail. And I loved being able to connect in with people's hearts and bring out the love, bring out the best in people. And so that was I know that's not answering the goddess question, but I found the goddess through my connection to finding God, to that activation of something higher, something beyond what I could understand. And, with church and with God, this is where it didn't make sense to me. The church told me I couldn't go to concerts. The church told me I couldn't have my nose pierced. There were certain things that then I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. They told me that crystals were bad and evil. And I thought, what? hang on, crystals are in the earth, like they're part of the earth. So how? I don't understand why that is wrong. And so I started to question the church. And, you know, I remember asking the priest, why is it bad for me to have my nose pierced? All the women in India have their nose pierced. You know, I don't understand that. That doesn't make sense to me. And I left the church because there were no answers to my questions. And that was when I found the goddess. And the goddess made so much sense to me. You know, it was like the god was out there, like some god on some throne watching over us all, or, you know, something like. And then the goddess was like the connection to the earth and the connection to myself and the connection of love and nurturing. And that made so much sense to me. And so I instantly knew, like, I am a goddess because I am part of the earth and the earth is part of me, and that I'm connected to the universe and the cosmos and to each and every human being. And to me, you know, the goddess is love. The goddess is connection. The goddess, to me, is accessible.
So when you ask me, what does the goddess mean to me? What the goddess means is that there is a fullness and a richness to divinity itself that includes every conceivable aspect of life and love. Those aspects that human beings tend to identify with the feminine energetic, and those aspects that human beings tend to identify with the masculine energetic, as well as those aspects that we can't even find a way to identify with because we don't fully understand the energetic itself, which is, of course, the energetic of pure love. Pure love requests, asks for, hopes for, wants, needs, and, of course, demands nothing at all in return.
When we use the word goddess, that means many things to many people. I have to go back to actually my own awkward and uncomfortable relationship with the word God from my childhood, where at a certain point where I was disengaging from some of the understandings that I had been given of God. Sort of the Sunday school version evoked this, you know, older man with a long beard, and I couldn't relate to the word for a long time because it brought up this one image that didn't speak to me. And I eventually came to a place where I could, when I heard the word God, I could understand that each person I heard use that word had their own relationship with it, their own understanding of what divinity means. And when I came to working with the word goddess, and what does that mean? I have the same kind of relationship, which is that each person who uses that word has a very different understanding of it. And for some people, it might be a visitation of a vision that looks a certain way, that speaks a certain way, that relates to one as an other, something different than oneself. My own understanding of both the word God and goddess is much more metaphorical. I don't have a sense of an entity that is a separate thing from who we are as part of this living, breathing planet and universe, that there's something so much larger than the individual self. And I think that is really what we're evoking when we use those words, both of them. And when we particularly use the word goddess, I think what we're attempting to bring in there is an aspect of that largerness, that something that goes beyond myself, that includes a lot of aspects of nature, of being, that weren't always included in that understanding of what God was.
What I noticed as a young child, there was this song It's called Children from One Father. And I thought, yeah, one father, I could imagine that. But what about the mother? Where was the mother in the whole story? And there was Mother Mary, of course. And she had a baby like that. And I was like, but if there's a father and there's a mother, why, you know, I was a wise child. But I always question that. Where's the feminine part in our religion?
Is it possible, just possible, that there's something we don't fully understand here about God, about life, and about ourselves? The understanding of which would change everything. If that's possible, of course, there are those who say, no, it's not possible. Neale, it's all right there. It's all in the scriptures. It's all in the books. It's all in the teachings. It's all in the messages. Neale, there's nothing we don't understand. We understand it completely. But if we think that it's possible, just possible, that there may be some data missing, that there's more to know about all of this, if we think that's just possible, then we're in the right place by being in this program right now. Because it's my hope that when this summit, when this program is complete, it will contain a wide variety of ideas, understandings, and expressions that each of us can explore deeply and then at last go within and find the wisdom, the clarity, and the answer that is true for us deep within us to be your own authority in the matter.
I was actually brought up in a very Roman Catholic home. So I often get the question, well, how can you be a Kundalini teacher and have what lots of people consider the woo-woo, which I'm very into, very spiritually and all of that, and yet have been brought up in a Roman Catholic home? And I think maybe it is because of the contrast. The Roman Catholic faith is obviously very strong, and they've got lots of rituals, which are really great, and I resonate quite strongly with all of those. It's the man-made side of religion which doesn't resonate strongly with me, and I think that's just history and all of its side of things. And so when I was reading that definition, I was like, oh, okay, so the religion bits, take it in context, but being the leader of a movement, I'm very much about women empowering women and women helping women and the collaboration and all of that, and getting in touch with your feminine side, particularly at the moment with our very patriarchal society. It's the women who are going to be the game changers. It's the women who are going to create the new reality. And that is something which came across very strongly in my Kundalini training. Funnily enough, from a male teacher, he said to me, if there's anyone in a home who's going to make a change, it's going to be the woman of the house. If there's anyone who's going to make a change in a business, in a country, in anything, it's going to be the woman, because the woman will not just see the vision of the change, but actually does the action as well.
But the goddess is calling, the feminine spirit. She has been crushed for long enough, and has been rising gradually. And I think this is all part of like the great awakening that we're in right now. This is a fantastic time for us to be living in. It's been happening gradually. Like I remember, oh my goodness, like I used to do courses on intuition development like 30 years ago, and you would say the word intuition and spirit guides, and there would be a following of a few people. Right. But there were a few. So we were beginning. And now it is almost common to say, intuition and inner wisdom. And, our consciousness is expanding. And, particularly with, the physicalness of it too, with the pandemic. So it's right in our face. People are being forced to confront their own themselves and their own awakening, and the women are rising.
This is the great awakening that we are taking part of it. Some people call it the great churning, where we're turning the trajectory from where we've gone towards something to the future. And it is that, but turning kind of implies we're staying on the same level. Awakening says we're taking it to a new level. So I like the idea of awakening, that it's a change of consciousness, and we are awakening our divine nature. I feel that, you know, one of my sayings is evolution is the God's way of making more gods.
What the goddess means to me is hope. Hope that leads us back into our ancient origins and the roots of our deep, magnificent and magnetic, etheric ancestors, into the origins of our sacredness, into our collective beginnings, because the goddess leads us into the lap of the mother. What the goddess means to me is the opportunity to recognize that the many thousands of manifestations, the many thousands of symbols, the many thousands of names of the goddess are all indigenous principles that we carry. Her expansive expression takes on an individual and unique manifestation within everyone, male and female. It's one of the greatest things I love about her. How that we can make her our own. And that these principles, these names, these symbols register such a deep resonance within us that we remember. We remember a truth that embraces all of us, that we are one. Yes, we are many manifestations. Yes, we are many cultures. Yes, we are many pathways. Yes, we are many colors. But actually, that diversity represents life. And through her, I recognize, and I have learned, that we all sit in this infinite cycle of life, reflecting and mirroring, that there's something in our collectivity that registers as us as siblings to this beautiful, benevolent spirit of our Earth star, of our Earth, of our planet. For me, the goddess calls us into galactic citizenship. She calls us into global citizenship. She calls us all to the round table. That's what I love. The other thing I love about her. She lays down separations. She cultivates unity. She's dynamic in the love of all her children. And remembering her, connecting with her, puts us in this idea of the Hugh family.
You know, for me, the goddess is two things in one. One is just the all-loving, all-nurturing, all-nourishing mother energy, you know, great mother energy. So many of us, you know, whether we've had incredible mothers, like actual mothers in our lives, or not so great actual mothers in our lives. No matter what the spectrum is, all of us, I believe, at least for me, is like, there's a deep longing to merge with this archetype and this energy of the mother, the one who just is just always there to nurture you, always there to support, always there to wrap her big loving arms around you and let you know that it's okay. So that's number one for me. The goddess is always there for me when I need to be loved up, when I need to be reminded of who I really am, you know, and how valuable and worthy I really am, when I need to be reminded that all is going to be okay. So that's that's the biggie. And then the second piece with that is, to me, it's like she's all around as well as inside of me.
Fascinating. So I had an unfortunate childhood with a very abusive mother, both psychologically and physically. And she didn't mean it. You know, she was a young mother. She had her own stressors. However, she's a strong woman, and it actually made me afraid of women. And I didn't even know that I was afraid of women until later in life, like in my early 40s, when I finally realized I didn't have a lot of women friends. I had mostly guy friends because my father and I had a great relationship. And so my experience of men was safer, you know, that kind of thing. Like when my dad died, it shifted. And I almost think that was the shift, because that was right around when it shifted. And I was gifted with so many beautiful, strong women around me. And they actually helped me heal the wound that I had as a child. And I thought, this is fascinating. You know, there's something really healing in here. And now I love women. And now I feel that it's the feminine that actually creates everything. I have a client who's actually writing a book about her activation and seeing that the stars and the feminine energy is what is the original creator. I mean, it makes sense, right? Women make babies, we create. And it needs to be balanced with the masculine, right? There's a balance there. But the divine feminine, which has been suppressed, unfortunately, for quite some time, is now being released with more strength, more compassion, more, I mean, it's known now. This is what's crazy that I love. In order to be a good leader, we have to embrace being gentle and neutral in order to assess a situation so we can create healing. And that's actually a feminine trait.
I've definitely been very masculine for once I got into like high school. I had some events happen, let's say, that really like brought out this like warrior masculine spirit, like I need to protect myself type of energy. And so now as I'm getting older and just working with many different people, I'm learning, and also just different study as well. Working with feminine energy is, I feel like, you know, if you're in business or just, you know, you're on this conscious path, the healing of this energy is crucial.
Because that's not a language that I use in my work. I tend to be very, very pragmatic. I want, like your cousin in Southern Indiana, to be able to relate, to not feel anything in the way of how can she connect more to themselves? How can they relax more with how they're showing up right now?
I thought of myself as a goddess, and I had this image in my mind that was like, that's not really you, Mare. Because I'm a tomboy. You know, when I was a kid, I was out in the woods playing with my brothers, making forts. I was not into girly girl stuff. I was not into dolls. And so I had this image that I needed to let go of, honestly. And the image was of this diaphanous gown and this woman lilting through the meadow, you know, which I now know I can do at times. But what I also came to realize is the goddess is the most powerful divine feminine energies within us that we can all tap into. Even if you are a carpenter in your workday and you love to get out there and chop trees compassionately, reverently, you can still embody the goddess within yourself in how you live your life.
I think being a goddess or goddess-like is just being your true self, and just talking to others from a place of, you know, understanding and empathy.
Goddess to me, that just means like a human that's really embodied their dosha, like their purpose, their gifts here on planet. They know why they're here. They know how they can contribute, how they can add value to people's lives.
Goddess is owning who you are. And there are many goddesses that help us in that process of coming back to ourselves and sovereignty and owning our own magic and who we really truly are.
The veil is the thinnest on the planet was an incredible awakening for me. So I actually didn't feel that way before I landed in this place. And all of a sudden I could feel the feminine in me. It was a special place in Honduras near the ruins in Copan. And the place I stayed at for about a week or so was built on top of a feminine temple. And it was overlooking a valley. And when I say valley, a huge valley. So I didn't have to use my head, not even my heart. It just, I busted wide open. And the nurturance, the femininity, the return of my feminine happened without me even trying. It was effortless. So I was in denial before that. I will say I've kind of grew up feeling a little more masculine, maybe, kind of denying the feminine. Honestly, I'm an identical twin, and she's the more feminine. I'm the more masculine, kind of the, the egg split, and we each got, one of the sides, I suppose, of the coin. So in Honduras, I realized this is who I am. And I also learned from the Maya that this is a 2000 cycle year of the feminine returning. So that started in 2012, the 13th Baktun, which everyone thought was the end of the world, right? But to the Maya, it's the beginning of another phase. And in this case, the return of the divine feminine.
When I started to do the womb fertility, that was, I think, the base of working with goddesses and awaken the goddess within myself. And I think when we work with women, because it's so sacred work, I think it's logical to work with the goddesses within us and awake those. So for me it was liberating, I think, to recognize that there's a goddess within me. And that is also what I'm trying to do with all the women, especially with the womb fertility work, that they are a goddess and that they can embrace that goddess within themselves, because that's, I think, very empowering.
Like some people think like, oh, well, you know what? There's some goddesses out there, but that's not me. And I wanted to say that goddesses lives within every woman. So for those of you who's listening and who's wondering like, oh, I don't know if that's me or I don't got it, you got it. And she is our life force energy, our passion, and our wild and free self. Maybe if you just, as you're listening and watching, maybe you can just move yourself a little bit and just start to awaken your goddesses within. Yeah. See, look at Schamet, how beautiful she moves. And the thing is, she isn't always fully awake within us. We need to make a conscious choice, right? That's what we need to do in order for us to be in touch with our goddesses. So often it may require releasing the layer of insecurity or the fear or the injury from the past. And then maybe the stories we might have made up about ourselves, about like what we should be. And once you do that, maybe you're able to meet the goddesses within you if you haven't met her yet, this beautiful goddess.
Being the goddess is self-acceptance. It's stepping out as who you truly are and knowing that your flaws make you so beautiful, that your uniqueness, your quirks are just everything that needs to be celebrated, because it's what sets you apart. And I think for me, that's probably what has happened over the years as I've had all of those challenges, like you were saying, 2 years ago, I wish I'd started working together. It's those challenges that we had over those 2 years that, and all the other years, that got us to where we are, that got us to have more of that self-acceptance, more of that self-compassion, more of that, I guess, learning to love who we are, even though it's different, maybe even because it's different. And I think that I can resonate with. So being a goddess to me means knowing who I am, loving who I am, accepting who I am, and being the very best version I can be every day, knowing that every day I'm a little bit more of who I'm meant to be because of the life and the experience.
Goddess for me is sacred feminine, feminine leadership. This is really what is awakening right now on the planet.
And it's becoming this new power in the world today that embodies the strength and the power of the feminine. And I think we're awakening much, much more to this goddess energy, also knowing that, the male system has served us really well for a long time, but it almost feels like it needs to be more balanced now. And I think that's where I see the goddess and the priestess emerging, and us really embodying that and embracing that and living that without shame or guilt or suppressing it. So that for me, I think is what the goddess means.
The definition, which says, a priestess is a woman who is authorized to perform the sacred rites of a religion, or as a woman who is regarded as a leader of a movement. And I thought that was just like, hang on, I am a priestess. I can own this part of me. So I want to thank you, Schamet, for that beautiful gift, because I never would have ordinarily considered myself in that role. And so I feel like I have found a new part of me, which is so nice to have.
I was a priestess before I went back to graduate school and got my master's and PhD. So she came first. And to me, the goddess is the feminine principle that is half the cosmos. That we have a masculine and feminine principle in the cosmos of creation, of birth, of cycles. And we have, for the last, 3,000 years or so, mostly worship the masculine, and our world is sorely out of balance because of it. And it's not just about the oppression of women. I mean, that's being addressed, and of course it still goes on, but we started that with women's liberation. But it's what's missing in the conversation as we try to heal our world. And if we are to birth a new era, which I believe we are in the process of doing, birth comes through the feminine. I mean, that's just the way it is. Men create, they certainly do, but there is a birthing organic process that comes through the feminine. And if we don't honor the goddess, we're only playing with half a deck.
Because I feel like the feminine or the goddess has been kept in a very small container for a long time, and we've been missing out on her beauty, her power, her fire, like everything that she can bring through. We've been missing out on that within ourselves and within the collective. So with the redemption, it feels like there's space being opened up for that goddess divine feminine to come through to remind us of that connection to our soul, everything that we know intuitively, being able to navigate our paths so much more easily, and remembering that when we come here in sync with Mother Earth, I believe that we're designed to be able to flow and have that ease and have that harmony and just let the masculine honor that and serve.
Well, the Native American, for instance, that so honors the woman and the power of the woman. And sometimes it's misunderstood because, for instance, when you're on your moon time, you can't walk into the sweat lodge. And some people feel, oh my God, not allowing the women into a sacred area at that point. And it's because of the incredible power of the woman that the man can't deal with. So having the moon lodge and having the elders, with the maidens and the teaching of all the ways and the holding of those ways and the weaving of the stories and anchoring that power into the bodies, into the community, into it's been, yeah, the old witches and their herbal ways and their little huts. You know, it's always been the women holding this knowledge and this energy. And it's in the waves that we all can connect to when we have that particular interest.
The goddess for me is a universal concept. Mother Earth is my primary goddess, Gaia, and I'm here to serve her, and I'm here to listen to her, and I'm here to be an advocate and to be in partnership, and it's a high honor to do that.
The goddess is the embodiment of the divine feminine. And that those of us who are connecting to the goddess, there are many different inroads, many different ways we find, paths that lead us in that direction, but it's all about connecting to the divine feminine within ourselves, in our world, in the goddess archetypes that call to us, and ultimately in the form of what I refer to as God, the total God being.
And to me, the goddess is the feminine principle that is half the cosmos. That we have a masculine and feminine principle in the cosmos of creation, of birth, of cycles. And we have, for the last, 3,000 years or so, mostly worshiped the masculine. And our world is sorely out of balance because of it. And it's not just about the oppression of women. I mean, that's being addressed. And of course, it still goes on, but we started that with women's liberation. But it's what's missing in the conversation as we try to heal our world. And if we are to birth a new era, which I believe we are in the process of doing, birth comes through the feminine. I mean, that's just the way it is. Men create, they certainly do, but there is a birthing organic process that comes through the feminine. And if we don't honor the goddess, we're only playing with half a deck.
And all of that, how it fits together. And 50 years ago, in 1970, I had a vision, an incredible vision of the goddess that changed my life and was profound and revolutionized the entire early pagan movement that was just kind of getting launched at that time. And I kind of fell back into the river of DNA, of all the way back to my birth, to my conception, when it was just simply a single cell. That's how we all begin our life, as a single fertilized cell, a single being. Despite the fact that we compose trillions of cells, we are a single being because it's all the same protoplasm. It's all the same DNA, because when cells divide, they just put the same stuff into the two next ones. It isn't like, they go off and they're separate. It's all one. And that realization was so profound that in my vision, I rose up from the earth and I watched the life from that initial beginning spread out across the surface of the planet and to become the beautiful living biosphere that is our Mother Earth. And as I gazed down in wonder at this phenomenon, she opened her eyes and smiled at me and she said, "Now you know me." And, tears squirted from my eyes and I just fell to my knees in awe, in reverence. And I said, "I shall ever serve you." And from that moment, that has been my entire devotion.
And it's becoming much more like a personal relationship with that extremely intelligent, extremely loving and caring consciousness. It's hard to give it a gender. And so in the last years, I've been able to establish almost like a personal connection of writing back and forth. It started in a very interesting way through a very deep heartbreak when I lost the connection to God almost through that person I was so in love with, who had something had happened that went to a really deep heartbreak where I felt like anyway, I felt a disconnection from that thing that was like my portal to the divine. And in that pain, in that deep heartbreak, it's when actually things opened up in a way. And then the divine started speaking to me in a way through everybody, through the different people, and whatever they will say to me, however they would approach. In a way, it's kind of the outer focus, and that came, like, got opened up. It suddenly came from all directions to the next thing my eyes would fall on when I'm driving, to the billboard and what it would say. It felt like suddenly almost as if God was talking to me. So through everything and everybody. So it has changed. I see it less about gender now, though in my own personal dialogues with it, it likes to be called source.
Well, I was just starting to learn about mythology, but then that interaction started happening to me through dream states, and through very vivid dream states. And there was a lot of meaning in those dreams. And I remember one of the dreams was where I was in the woods, and I was led to a place where I was going to meet the goddess. And I went into the middle of a very dense, old, ancient forest. And just to make a very long dream and story short, I ended up finding the goddess. And the goddess was this mound of mossy, glowing, greenish life form, really like moss in a way. But it was vibrant and it was alive. And it was just glowing with this energy, and the presence of that was visceral. I could feel it in my bones, and I knew, like, wow, this is a source of life.
So when I think of the goddess, I think of it as within, and this experience that you have of the goddess cells or the divine cells humming and vibrating in your own body. And also then the oneness that you can experience through the expansion available through your body. And this body that we are in is this portal to the divine.
To me, that is an ongoing study and experience of connecting my womb space with my heart, with my higher self, and focusing on the alignment between these three centers. And as we know, as women, our womb space and directly connecting our womb to the earth and opening to that amazing creative power that we embody. And we know that our womb has a totally different intelligence than our minds, and a totally different sensory realm. And there's so much power and wisdom to drop into our wombs and connect to the earth. And for me, as I've been doing it for several years, there's just more and more and more, just like relaxing into that and feeling my womb directly linked to the earth. And then my heart, as we know, our hearts inherently feel the unification and the oneness of all of life. Our hearts live in that vibration, and therefore our hearts naturally emanate compassion for all living beings and that self-love vibration. And then our opening our crown to the heavens, to the cosmos, to the cosmic intelligence, to the vast realm. So for me, the higher self is found when I open up my crown. To me, that's how I access the higher self. So to me, that's what it means to awaken as a goddess of the cosmos, is to bring in that alignment.
And when I feel into that, I think what I'm going to just reel back probably 30 years or so. And that word became much more personal to me and embodied, rather than just a word or a picture or an image. Through work that I was doing many years ago involving movement and breath work, and work on, it was very profound work in, I live in California, and there was this very, it was a powerful workshop that was happening, sweeping through our area. And we worked on the level of beliefs, working with our beliefs, working with releasing blocks in our energy bodies, working through, as I said, music, breath work. It was very multidimensional, working on the mind, the heart, the body. And I just came into touch through, and dance was part of it as well, through the tremendous, tremendous innate power, wisdom, and intelligence that each of us have inside of us. And very, very visceral. And it's part of, it's connected to so much. Part of it is, it's our energy systems. We have tremendous energy, within us. And it's also related to the area of the womb chakra, but not just that, or the area of the womb, but when we're all aligned, we can feel this natural radiance and luminosity. But I remember thinking, wow, this power, this energy, this knowledge, this wisdom, everything, this is inside each of us.
The goddess means eternity. She is the great mother that holds the cosmos, the universe. She expresses her life in beauty and bounty. She has many faces, but in the end, all is for love. Her power is unnameable, but yet she gives it to all that she creates. So I feel her power running through me in my childbirth and giving conception to childbirth, the raising of the children, the food upon the earth. I see her everywhere. And so when someone says, you are the goddess, I open myself to reflect, allow others to see the goddess reflected in them. So I see the goddess reflected in you.
Humanity, in incarnating on the earth, came here with a mission. A mission as a group, all of us. And then, of course, we all have our own soul path and are following our own soul journey. But that there's also an overarching thing that has brought all of us together to the earth. And it has very much to do with discovering, getting to know the feminine and learning to embrace the feminine and to unite the feminine with the masculine.